Have you ever experienced the unsettling sensation that something is amiss, yet you can't quite put your finger on it? As if your choices aren't entirely your own, guided by an unseen hand? Perhaps you've agreed to favors you resented, conceded arguments you knew you should have won, or placed trust in individuals who later revealed their true colors. If this resonates, and I suspect it does, then this message is for you. The harsh reality is this: you're being manipulated daily by those closest to you, by the media, by authority figures, by anyone skilled in the subtle art of psychological influence. And the most insidious part? You're largely unaware of it. Forget hypnosis or cinematic mind control. The most effective manipulation operates under the guise of autonomy, convincing you that the decisions, the mistakes, are entirely your own. Most people live this way, unknowingly manipulated like pawns in a game they never agreed to play. And when they attempt to resist, they're met with guilt, fear, and self-doubt, emotionally conditioned to comply. If you believe you're immune, think again. That's precisely the manipulator's intention. This isn't about comfort, it's about empowerment. As Machiavelli understood, true masters of manipulation don't rely on force or coercion. They observe, identify your vulnerabilities, and exploit them. They understand your motivations, and if you remain ignorant of your own motivations, you'll be controlled by theirs. This exploration will expose the covert tactics of manipulation. You'll recognize the patterns, the emotional ploys, the subtle power dynamics. You'll identify your own vulnerabilities and learn to fortify your mind. True freedom isn't about doing what you want. It's about understanding why you want it. This is a call to action for those weary of being used, for those who've suffered in silence, blamed, silenced, and conditioned. Here, you'll learn to shed the role of puppet and become a strategist. But be warned, once you see, you can't unsee. Prepare yourself. What you're about to discover may fundamentally alter your perception of others and yourself. Have you observed how certain individuals consistently get what they want, even when undeserving? They don't resort to threats, pleas, or raised voices. They persuade, they engage, they subtly guide you toward a predetermined outcome, making you believe it was your idea all along. This isn't charisma. It's calculated manipulation in its most potent form. The manipulator doesn't operate on impulse. They strategize. They study you, your reactions, vulnerabilities, and emotional needs. They recognize your craving for approval, your fear of rejection, your guilt at saying no. And they leverage these vulnerabilities. Manipulation begins long before words are exchanged. It starts with a silent assessment of your body language, your tone of voice, the pregnant pauses in your speech. Some employ charm, offering smiles, compliments, and a pretense of unique connection. They make you feel seen, heard, and valued. But beneath this veneer of kindness lies a calculated agenda. They're creating a sense of obligation, an emotional debt. Human nature compels reciprocity. When someone is excessively kind, you feel compelled to repay the favor. And that's when the manipulation takes hold. Others weaponize guilt, adopting the victim role. They lament their burdens, their lack of understanding, their dependence on you. Subtly, they place you in a position of emotional responsibility. If you attempt to disengage or refuse, they don't need to argue. A sigh, a pointed remark, a melancholic expression is sufficient. The skilled manipulator never makes explicit demands. They orchestrate a scenario where you offer willingly. Then there are those who wield fear, conjuring catastrophic scenarios. If you do this, you'll end up alone. If you leave, you'll never find anyone better. They don't bind you with physical restraints, but with psychological shackles, instilling self-doubt and paralyzing your ability to act. These tactics aren't novel. Niccolò Machiavelli, in The Prince, clinically dissected manipulation as a legitimate instrument of power. He recognized that human behavior is governed by self-interest and emotion, and that those who understand these levers can shape reality. As he wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, because all can see but few can touch." Manipulation is precisely that, a carefully crafted illusion designed to appear as reality. The manipulator constructs a stage, casting you unknowingly in a pre-written play. They assign roles, dictate the script, and direct your actions. And the most terrifying aspect? You believe you're the author of your own story. But this charade only works because there's a vulnerability within you that allows it, a chink in your armor, an unfulfilled need, an unacknowledged desire. This leads us to the next stage, identifying the vulnerabilities that make you a target. Until you recognize your weaknesses, you'll continue to be manipulated, mistaking it for love, friendship, or respect. Let's expose these vulnerabilities now. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. You're not manipulated because you're weak. You're manipulated because you're human. Every individual possesses emotional blind spots, unfulfilled desires, unhealed wounds, and silent needs that create vulnerabilities. And this is where the manipulator gains entry. They don't force, they observe, perceiving what you fail to recognize in yourself. Some harbor an insatiable need for approval, conditioned from childhood to equate affection with compliance. Love becomes a reward, not an inherent right. Consequently, they mold their behavior for acceptance, validation, and recognition. This need, this void within, is an open invitation to the manipulator. They offer crumbs of validation, and you reciprocate with unwavering loyalty. They echo your desires, and in return, you surrender your autonomy. Others carry the invisible burden of guilt, blaming themselves for setting boundaries, prioritizing their needs, or simply saying no. They've been taught that self-care is selfish, self-sacrifice a virtue. Consequently, even when something feels amiss, they suppress their instincts, fearing they're being unreasonable, ungrateful, or uncaring. The manipulator recognizes this guilt, positioning themselves as your benevolent protector, subtly controlling your decisions through a distorted moral compass. And then there are those burdened by fear of rejection, loneliness, or oblivion. They cling to any connection, however toxic, dreading the perceived void. The manipulator offers a false sense of security, then threatens to withdraw it, instilling the belief that without them, you are nothing, a fear you already harbored before they articulated it. These vulnerabilities have roots, stemming from past experiences, unresolved traumas, and inherited emotional conditioning. Until you confront these wounds, they remain open, inviting those with charming smiles and hidden agendas to exploit them. Machiavelli understood this, recognizing that true control doesn't require brute force, only an understanding of human frailty. The nature of peoples is variable, he wrote, and it's easy to convince them of one thing but difficult to keep them in that conviction. The manipulator doesn't seek to convince. They infiltrate the voids within, exploiting your lack of awareness. But there's a path to liberation. You can transcend emotional predictability, learning to identify and address your vulnerabilities. Only then will you cease to be an easy target and begin to live with clarity. And that's what we'll reveal next. How to develop genuine emotional armor, cultivating immunity to manipulation. Are you ready to break free from these invisible chains? The next step requires courage. Most people desire freedom from manipulation, but few are willing to pay the price. Brutal self-awareness. The truth liberates, but it often wounds first. The first illusion to shatter is the belief that kindness, empathy, and understanding are inherent protection. They're not. In fact, without the balance of discernment, these virtues can make you vulnerable. Developing emotional immunity isn't about becoming callous, but about becoming conscious. It's about disrupting the automatic reactions triggered by manipulators. The first step is recognizing your patterns. Observe yourself. What triggers your compliance? Is it the fear of disappointing others? The anxiety of rejection? The desperate need to maintain harmony? Understanding your motivations is the first step to changing the game. The second step is cultivating what Machiavelli might call strategic detachment. Learn to create emotional distance without sacrificing empathy. Observe without immediate involvement. Don't accept compliments at face value. Recognize when someone is attempting to sway you through emotion, and pause before reacting. The manipulator relies on your emotional impulsivity. They need you to feel, not to think. So, think. The third step is cultivating unpredictability. Manipulators thrive on predictable responses. They map your reactions, knowing that tears will elicit comfort, compliments will lower your defenses, and pressure will secure compliance. Your defense lies in disrupting this pattern. Defy their expectations. Say no when they anticipate a yes. Withdraw when they expect persistence. Remain silent when they anticipate confrontation. This disarms their tactics and forces them to reveal their true intentions. Another crucial element is cultivating a strong sense of self. The more secure you are in your identity, the less you need external validation. And the less you seek validation, the less power others hold over you. Manipulators excel at controlling your self-perception, instilling doubt, and making you question yourself, always aligning with their narrative. A strong internal compass weakens their influence. And don't be misled. This is a practice, not a one-time fix. Emotional immunity isn't acquired passively. It's cultivated through consistent self-observation, resisting the urge to please, and upholding your decisions even when met with disapproval. It's about remembering that your primary responsibility is to your own mental well-being. Maintaining sanity in a world rife with emotional games is an act of resistance. Machiavelli wrote, "Men must be pampered or destroyed, for if merely offended, they will take revenge." This stark observation reveals an uncomfortable truth. In the power dynamics of human interaction, there is no neutrality. Either you master the emotional landscape, or you'll be consumed by it. But what if the manipulator is deeply embedded in your life? At home, at work, even sharing your bed? How do you navigate these situations when severing ties isn't an option? In the next segment, we'll delve into the complexities of manipulation within intimate relationships, exploring how to escape emotional control even when the manipulator is someone you love. This, perhaps, will be the ultimate test of your strength. It's easy to discuss manipulation when the manipulator is a stranger. The challenge arises when the controlling influence comes from someone you love: a parent, partner, a boss who gave you a break, a longtime friend. In these intimate settings, manipulation becomes more insidious, more perilous, and more painful, disguised as affection, care, or loyalty. Fearing the loss of connection, you remain trapped in an emotional web that drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and erodes your sense of self. The intimate manipulator doesn't necessarily lie. They distort. They don't shout. They insinuate. They don't restrict your choices. They burden you with guilt for choosing differently. Gradually, you cease to question, treading carefully, avoiding conflict, and anticipating reactions to maintain a fragile peace. Unconsciously, you become a prisoner in an invisible cage constructed from emotional manipulation. In romantic relationships, this can masquerade as devotion. I do this because I love you. My life is meaningless without you. But love that demands subservience isn't love. It's emotional blackmail. Within families, it's cloaked in tradition. You can't do this to your mother. You owe us respect. But respect born of guilt isn't respect. It's control. In the workplace, it's presented as loyalty. You should be grateful. No one else would give you this opportunity. But gratitude weaponized as obligation is manipulation. The crucial point: proximity doesn't justify emotional abuse. Love doesn't grant the right to control through fear or guilt. Breaking free requires accepting a difficult truth. Not every loving relationship is healthy. Not everyone who loves you understands how to love you well. And not every bond that holds you is protective. Some simply impede your growth. So, how do you navigate these treacherous waters? Begin by establishing boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries that require no justification. A calmly articulated no carries more weight than 1,000 arguments. Next, expose the manipulation. Articulate what you observe, what you feel, and what you will no longer tolerate. This isn't about convincing the other person, but about reclaiming your own power. Finally, stand firm when the inevitable backlash arrives. The insults, the victimhood, the punitive silence. The manipulator thrives on your hesitation, testing your resolve, hoping you'll retreat. And here's the reality few dare to confront. Sometimes, loving someone means creating distance, stepping away from the dysfunctional dance, and allowing them to confront their own emptiness. As long as you remain attempting to rescue, support, or explain, they won't change. And you will lose yourself in the process. It's a difficult choice, but a necessary one. Only by liberating yourself from toxic connections can you develop a new perspective, one that sees beyond words, masks, and superficial intentions. And with this newfound clarity, we enter the next stage, applying Machiavellian strategic thinking to navigate the modern world, shielding your mind from the constant barrage of external influences. It's time to turn the tables. Machiavelli wasn't concerned with pleasantries or appearing ethical, virtuous, or well-intentioned. He focused on raw, unvarnished reality, the kind most prefer to ignore. To survive psychologically in today's world, you must adopt a similar mindset: brutal clarity, strategic thinking, and emotional detachment. Make no mistake, we live in an age of pervasive manipulation. Social media, marketing, politics, religion, relationships, all operate on the principles of influence, image, and narrative control. Those who fail to grasp this are swept away by the current. Machiavelli viewed human beings as predictable creatures, driven by self-interest and emotion. He asserted that understanding these mechanisms is the key to power. He wrote, "Men generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Everyone can see, but few can touch." In other words, perception trumps reality. And that's the game being played. Whoever controls the narrative dictates the decisions. Whoever controls the image wields influence. And whoever understands the underlying psychology controls behavior without uttering a word. What does this mean practically? It means abandoning emotional autopilot. Machiavelli didn't subscribe to universal morality. He believed in context. What works in one situation might be detrimental in another. What appears noble in theory can be disastrous in practice. Kindness without discernment is folly. Honesty without tact is self-sabotage. Unbounded altruism is servitude. To achieve true freedom, you must learn to play the game and play it masterfully. This begins with observation. Learn to decipher people as Machiavelli deciphered the nobility, not by their words, but by their actions when unobserved. Evaluate behavior, not promises. Analyze patterns, not excuses. Trust actions, not pronouncements. Discern the hidden motivations behind the carefully crafted words. Above all, don't react. Anticipate. The manipulator operates strategically. Your defense lies in staying one step ahead. Wield silence as a weapon. One of the most common errors is oversharing, revealing too much, explaining too much. The Machiavellian strategist understands that silence commands respect and disrupts the manipulator's rhythm. When you defy expectations, their script crumbles. And in that disruption, you gain the upper hand. Another crucial skill is mastering ambiguity. Machiavelli taught that maintaining power requires appearing virtuous without necessarily being so. In the modern context, this means adapting your language, posture, and presence to the environment without compromising your core values. You needn't reveal everything, simply control the perception. True power lies in what remains unseen. Most importantly, take ownership of your emotional state. The manipulator thrives on your instability, your doubts, fears, and hesitations. Self-awareness, self-regulation, and unwavering resolve, even under pressure, render you impervious to their tactics. Machiavelli wrote, "The prudent man should follow the paths beaten by the great, and imitate those who have been excellent, so that even if he does not reach their level, he may come close." In essence, learn from the masters of strategy to avoid becoming a pawn in their game. Now that you understand the dynamics of manipulation and how to strategically defend yourself, one question remains. How do you translate this knowledge into practical strength, into a way of being immune to external influence? This is what we'll explore in the final segment. How to reclaim control of your mind and liberate yourself from manipulation. Are you ready to sever the remaining invisible strings that bind you? Then, let's proceed. We've arrived at the most crucial point, and perhaps the most challenging to accept. As long as you relinquish control of your mind, someone else will gladly seize it. This isn't always a Machiavellian villain, a caricature of manipulation. Sometimes it's the smiling face beside you. Sometimes it's an ingrained belief from childhood. Sometimes it's society itself, conditioning you to obey, conform, and remain silent. The manipulation that truly binds you isn't just in the words of others. It's in the unexamined thoughts, the unquestioned emotions, the choices driven by fear, guilt, and the need for acceptance that you mistakenly label free will. True freedom begins when you recognize conditioned responses masquerading as autonomy. But this freedom comes at a cost. It requires shattering the illusion of universal benevolence, dismantling the self-image of perpetual kindness and availability, and embracing the discomfort of setting boundaries, the weight of silence after saying no, and the loneliness of disentangling from harmful, yet familiar, dynamics. You'll transcend manipulation when you transcend the need for acceptance, when the fear of disapproval loses its grip, when your clarity outweighs your neediness, and when, finally, you can face those who attempted to control you and calmly assert, "No more." What you do with this knowledge is your choice. You can return to your life, oblivious, continuing to play a game you don't understand. Or you can begin today to cultivate mental acuity, to observe, analyze, resist, and rebuild. You can choose to become the individual who resists emotional blackmail, who sees through facades, who stands firm while others flounder. Share your experiences below. When did you first recognize you were being manipulated? What triggered your awareness? Are you still entangled in an emotional game and seeking a way out? Speak your truth. Verbalizing is the first step to breaking free. And if this video has opened your eyes, don't stop here. The next video is equally crucial, perhaps even more so. Knowledge is a ladder, each rung leading you further from the darkness. Keep climbing, because the truth not only liberates, it transforms. See you there.